And I'm sad now. The end of the season was a good ending, wasn't it? With that said, hello everybody. Welcome back to our final Fruits Basket Season 2 discussion video. Today we're here to talk all about episode 25, I'm Different Now. But before we do, quick reminder, if you haven't done so yet, and 60% of you have not, by the way, 60% of you guys watching these videos have not hit the sub button, so what are you doing? Come on, hit that sub button. Just because the season's over doesn't mean there's not new stuff to talk about, doesn't mean that I'm not going to be talking about Season 3, the final, because that title has to be dramatic as hell. But yeah, obviously just because Season 2 is done does not mean I'm not coming back for Season 3, so go ahead, hit that sub button. I've also got a secret FruBa video coming out next week as well, so hit the sub button so you can be notified for when that comes out. But without further ado, everybody, let's gather together one more time, get yourself a glass of water, and let's talk about episode 25, the final episode of FruBa Season 2. Okay, so this week, there's mainly just two central characters to the episode. You have Kureno, which was a surprise. I was not expecting a Kureno episode to end the season on. Nevertheless, here we are. So it's focused on Kureno and Akito. And we'll get into Akito as we go, but we have to talk about Kureno first. But the other big thing that we should talk about at the end of the video is the final season. But again, we'll talk about that at the end. First, we gotta talk about Kureno. Now, Kureno is a character, when they were introduced, I immediately liked. There was something about the character that just sort of, I found charming, you know? Of course, all the friggin' Somas have to be pretty to some degree. So I was like, of course Kureno's handsome. Like, of course he's handsome, because that's just the way of things. But Kureno, and his particularly in his meetings with Uo, as he says, like, they only really interacted twice. But for some reason, those two interactions just hit hard, right? Like, it's one of those like meet cute type things where like the instant they meet, they just work together. And I really do think that that's the case. And at the very least, like, whether or not they end up together, I still think that Kureno should meet up with Uo again. And we know that he feels the same way, since when we see him in this week's episode, he's clearly still pining over Uo. Like, he's still thinking about her, even though he can't, for some reason. I mean, we find out this week, but even though he can't go to her, you know, like, the whole season, I'm like, why won't he just go talk to her? God damn it. Like, just, you like this woman. Like, you love this woman. Go out and talk to her, but he refuses. And I was very confused as to why until this week. And this week was a hell of a bombshell. Now, that said, Kureno, what kills me is that if Kureno would just go talk to them, like, if Kureno would just go talk to Uo, he'd realize that she's been pining over him this whole season, right? Like, she's, ever since their last meeting, she still thinks about him. Like, when we see them at school talking about graduation, which is a whole other can of worms that I don't even have time to get into right now, but when we see them talking about graduation, they find Uo looking up at the sky and noticing a sparrow fly by, right? And since Kureno is since Kureno is supposed to be the rooster zodiac, when she sees the sparrow fly by, it's clearly meant to represent Kureno. And it's funny the fact that Kureno is the rooster, right? A bird, that he's a bird in a cage, essentially. Like, he can't, like, a bird in a cage that they chose. Like, this isn't like somebody put a bird in a cage. The bird hopped into the cage and then somebody shut the door behind it. Like, Kureno chose this, you know? Like, this is basically Kureno's choice at this point, unaware that Uo is still pining for him. And they, you know, embrace Akito, and that's just the way it is. And it's heartbreaking to see, man, but things change very quickly when Kureno watches the DVD that Momiji was oh so clever in handing him. And watching him, like, reach out to the screen broke my heart. Because I'm like, look at this man! Like, this man just wants his girl! This man just wants his woman, damn it! Like, this man just wants to be near Uotani. That's all he wants. And Uo is my girl, you know? Uotani's been my girl since the flashback episode, so, like, I just want the best for her, and what's best for her is clearly Kureno. So it's like, okay, y'all just need to get together. At this point, I'm fed up with this. So you can imagine my excitement when Kureno gives Shigure's house a call looking for Toru. Unfortunately, he does not get Toru on the line. He gets Shigure on the line. But what's interesting is Shigure's like, well, this is a first, right? Like, he's like, you could tell Shigure's like, interesting. Okay, why are you calling me? And Shigure has a very interesting couple lines in this week, and they all lead up to the big moment. But Shigure's saying to Hattori like, don't you find it weird? Like, don't you find the Kureno thing weird? Isn't there something off about him? Can't you feel it? And he says like, look at you, Hattori, like so concerned about what doing what Kureno did, about what that would mean for you, like, oh, you're sentimental, shit like that. Or I think he calls him like deceptive or something, and he's like, that's the last thing I want to hear from you. Like Hattori's like, you don't get to talk to me like that. But Kureno, they've basically, Hattori and Shigure both, and I assume the other characters as well, since the other characters have always sort of had a weird vibe around Kureno, but they've never been able to pinpoint what it is. So I think they all have this vibe, but specifically Shigure and Hattori seem to have already figured out what the weird vibe is about. And I'm sitting here like completely, blissfully unaware of what the hell it is they're talking about. Even when they mention like, oh, like you're just concerned about breaking the bond or whatever, I'm still like blissfully ignorant about what's happening until the moment happens. And let's go ahead and talk about that. Shigure, even though he's like, what do you want with Toru, right? Like Shigure's clearly like, go away. Like, what do you want, right? But I think he's aware, like, actually, this could help my plan, so I'm gonna send Toru out to go get envelopes, but on the way she's gonna bump into Kureno. So that's like what they set up here over the phone. And that leads to the big moment. And what is the big moment? Well, Toru, sweet, beautiful angel Toru, is going to get envelopes for Shigure. And when she is on her way, she stumbles across some sparrows in a park. And, you know, it's Toru, so she stumbles over and says, like, sorry, I don't have any breadcrumbs, but blah, 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 like, and reaches out her hand. And again, like a goddamn Disney princess, the sparrows just sort of, like, flock to her. And then she notices Kureno. Well, she doesn't even notice Kureno. Kureno just kind of, like, notices her first and stumbles over. And when he walks over to her, the sparrows fly off. They get scared, they get spooked, and they run away. Or they fly away, rather, you know, because they birds. But Toru is like, wait a minute. They flew away from you, and that's weird, because the Zodiacs that I know, like, Kyo is always followed by cats, like, Yuki's always followed by mice, and, like, Shigure is surrounded by dogs, right? Like, when they transform, right? And even not when they're transformed, even just when they're, like, regular, like, they attract those animals feel comforted by those Zodiac members, so why are the birds flying away from the bird Zodiac? Like, why are they flying away from the rooster? That's not right. And then Kureno reaches out, grabs Toru, and pulls her close, and he doesn't change. And just saying it, I just gave myself goosebumps because I'm thinking about the scene again. Because the way they play it, it's perfect. And Kureno just says, like, I'm different now. Like, he says, like, the episode title, like, I'm different now. I haven't been cursed for a while, and I haven't been able to fly. I can no longer fly. I haven't been able to do that for a long time. And it's like, what? Right? Like, first of all, that's gotta suck. Being able to fly and then having that ability taken away, that's gotta suck. Also, roosters can't fly. unless I'm making a mistake here, I don't know how he flew, but whatever, he can fly. He's Peter Pan. He, you know, just a happy thought and a bit of pixie dust, and away you go. And regardless, he can no longer fly, and he's no longer cursed, right? And he kind of just, like, we get the scene where it's like everything about Kureno begins to fall into place. Like, you get it. You get why he's been the way that he is for so long. Like, he's so empty because, like, while yes, all the Zodiac members are trapped with Akito, it's ironically enough the one who doesn't need to be trapped who's the most trapped. Like, the one who is stuck with Akito, like, cannot leave by their own choosing. Like, Kureno did this, you know, and it's crazy to see. And of course, like, hearing this, Toru's immediately like, wait, okay, you broke the curse. And I'm thinking, like, he broke the curse. How? Right? Like, I'm having the same thought as Toru, like, how? Right? Like, how did you do that? And Kureno says, like, I don't know. And it's like, okay, but like, damn it, right? Because it's like, how do you not know? But he just says, like, I was with Akito, and then something just clicked, and it's like I didn't feel anything inside but me. I didn't have to suppress anything. I didn't have to push anything away. It was just me. And it was like my vision cleared, and I could see the sky clearer than ever. And I was sad because I couldn't fly, and yet I was happy because it was gone, right? Like, because the curse was broken. And Kureno explains that even though he doesn't know how, he was mortified by the screams that came from Akito, and we'll get into that in just a sec. But basically, Kureno felt horrible, and so he decided to stay, and he attempts to, like, give the DVD back, right? He tries to give the DVD back to Toru, but obviously she, like, just reaches out for his cheek, because when he tries to give it back, like, Toru takes it, but he, like, looks away, right? Because he's, like, disgusted. And this is clearly a metaphor of him rejecting his feelings, you know, like, trying to hand those feelings off to somebody else, like, trying to give them away. But obviously Toru just reaches right back out. So it's a metaphor of, like, even though he's attempting to throw his feelings away, those feelings just keep reaching out and grabbing him. You know, like, he can't escape Uo's pull, right? Like, he's in love with this woman, and now he can't stop thinking about her, and those feelings won't go away until he acts, right? So it's a clear metaphor, but when she reaches out, that's when he just breaks down. And it's probably the screenshot I've had up for a while, because this shot killed me, but Kureno just saying, like, because he tries to say, like, it was just 2 meetings, that's it. And now he's saying it was just 2 meetings, and that's all it took, right? Like, it's like the same 2 meetings, but just their meaning is flipped. Like, he was trying to say it's just 2 meetings, it didn't matter. Now it's just 2 meetings, and it mattered, and it meant everything. You know, like, it mattered. It meant the world to me, even though it was just 2. And you just see him, like, break down, but he says he can't let go. He can't walk away because he feels awful, because, like, he can't stand to leave Akito after her breakdown, after seeing what a sorrowful girl she was. And yeah, we can talk about this now. So we get to see Akito's big reveal that Akito's a girl. Oh my god! And this would have been really amazing. This would have been like a whoa moment if I wasn't spoiled on this. A lot of you guys, especially those of you in the premieres, because y'all are real ones, a lot of you guys knew that I had been spoiled on this a handful of times, but if you're in the premieres, you would have known that I've been spoiled. But in these videos, I've been using, like, they pronouns. I don't know if anybody caught that, you know, like, I've always said, like, they, them. I'd occasionally say he to, like, keep you off the scent, you know? But yeah, I knew for a while now that Akito was a woman. Like, I had known for a little while. And this changes nothing, just so you know. Like, I know some people are like, Akito's a girl, that's a huge twist. And it is, right? But it doesn't change how I view them. Like, Akito's still a jerk. Like, that doesn't change. It's just, like, seeing the way she, and I finally get to say she. I mean, I'm probably still going to use they, because I don't know Akito's pronouns. But, like, I might say they, but I'll occasionally throw in she here and there. For the sake of this week's video, this finale, I'm going to say she a lot, because it feels like the secret's finally out there, so I can say she. Akito, like, she is a troubled character, and we've known this for a while, and I think part of the reason why she freaks out when Kureno, like, breaks the curse, I have to wonder if maybe when the curse is broken on one of the Zodiac, if it, like, physically hurts, because the reaction was insane. Like the reaction from Akito, in general, like, Maya Sakamoto does such an excellent job voicing the character, and this sort of, like, mix of, like, malice and pain. You know, like, the character is malicious and cruel, but also broken and sad. And you get that very heavily here with Akito just screaming, right? Like screaming when Kureno breaks the curse and saying, like, don't go. like, she tells, like, the one older maid who, like, screw that lady too, but she tells her, like, don't come near us, I'll kill you. And that maid's like, whoa, right? Like, okay, Jesus. And Akito just screams at Kureno, and she says, like, don't leave, don't go, right? Like, don't leave me. And it's, I don't know what to say. It's so intense, and, like, do I feel bad? Not really, like, because I know what Akito's done by this point, you know, like, I know, like, who Akito is now, but it's not so much that I like, don't pity them, because I do, but it's more like I don't feel bad, I just understand, you know what I mean? And I have a feeling, based off what people have told me about Akito, that next season, that you'll start to understand the character more and more and more, and they're already brilliant. Like, Takia-sensei has written this character to be so, like, you love to hate Akito, right? Unless you're one of those people who are like, I like Akito. Whatever, good for you. For the most of us, like, we love to hate Akito, and that's the purpose of the characters. You're supposed, when they're on screen, you're supposed to be like, ooh, Akito, until now, where you're supposed to be like, ooh, Akito, but I get it. You know what I mean? And that's how you write a great character. A character who, when they show up on screen, you immediately hate them because you're meant to. You know, like, there's characters in fiction who I feel like everybody has, like, that character who you just, like, can't stand. Like, they're just written in such a way that you can't stand them. Not because you're supposed to not like them, but because they're just poorly written. Whereas with Akito, you're supposed to feel that way. Takia has written the character to be thus. And I mean, like, let's just go ahead and say this outright. Like, that last shot of Akito, I'm probably showing it on the screen now. That last shot of Akito is like, yep, like, that's everything about Akito, where it's like this, again, there's this malice and hatred, but there's also melancholic vibe to Akito. She's always, like, whether or not you thought she was a dude or a lady, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, they've always felt intimidating. You know, like, their presence is, like, serene and almost beautiful, and yet scary at the same time. There's always something about Akito that's felt off. You know, like, not quite human. Like, something very different about Akito. I mean, Akito is God, so there is that. But yeah, it's the Akito as a character is just fascinating. And it's funny because Akito mentions that Kureno had looked at her with distant eyes, right? And she says, like, what's that look in your eye? And when she says that, I get shivers, right? In the flashback, she says to Kureno, like, what's that look in your eye? And the reason why I got shivers is because, if you remember last week, what did she say to Yuki? What's with that look in your eye? And then she breaks a bottle over Yuki's head. I think that it has something to do with, like, the more distant you feel, and it's not so much a hatred, because hatred's still an emotion connecting you to Akito. The more distant you feel, I think eventually the curse will just snap, because she said distant, not angry, not sad, not scared, not in love, not happy with, no, distant eyes. So that's my guess, like, the distance. Like if you feel like that, the further away from Akito you get, I think the better off you are, until eventually the curse will snap. You have to let Akito, like, you have to let Akito go, essentially. You have to let them go. But Akito keeps you by like causing fear, you know, like ruling through fear. I feel like I just cracked the code. Like, I didn't even have this in my notes. I'm just, like, kind of spitballing. But I think that's it. I feel like I'm right. I could be wrong. I don't know. But, like, that's my guess, is that Kureno just felt like he just didn't care about Akito. Like, he just truly didn't care, you know? And then eventually that feeling just broke the curse. That feeling of, like, I don't care. I could fly away right now and I wouldn't care. And that feeling is probably what broke the curse. So I have a feeling, of all the characters, Yuki's probably the closest. Because, again, Akito says, like, that distant look, what's with that look in your eye? They don't say distant, they just say, what's with that look in your eye? And it's the same thing that Akito says to Kureno in the past. So I feel like if anybody's the closest, it's probably Yuki. And again, this doesn't change how I feel about Akito even a little, right? Like, Akito's still a monster, still the worst, And again, I'm sure we're going to get more backstory for Akito. In fact, I expect that for Fruits Basket the Final, which, like, God, they really had to call the last season Fruits Basket the Final just to be extra dramatic. But, yeah, I have a feeling, like, we'll get more Akito backstory. And I also have a feeling that it's not going to change my view of Akito. My view of Akito is pretty much set in stone. It won't change how I feel, but it will likely change how I see them. You know, like, it won't change how I feel about Akito, because how I feel is that Akito is a monster through and through. You scratched my girl's face. You punched Momiji in the face. You're threatening to lock Kyo up forever. You cracked a bottle over Yuki's head. You scratched out Hattori's eye. You basically you've basically brainwashed Kureno. Like, my boy got Stockholm syndrome out the wazoo. Like, you abused and neglected and were hateful and cruel to these people. So I will likely never forget any of that, right? But much like Yuki, I may be able to forgive if I understand why and I see some genuine attempts to change. I won't forget. Akito will forever be a monster, but they can maybe move forward if we understand where Akito came from and we see potential chances, like a potential to grow as a character. Like, maybe they actually do try to join the side of the angels. Then, like, maybe I can forgive, but will I ever forget? No. Akito will forever be a monster. Forever and ever. That said, Fruits Basket the Final has me very intrigued about what they're going to do with Akito. Also, just what they're going to do with, like, a myriad of things. Like, what if Akito doesn't change and stays a monster? Then we're going to have to try to figure out a way to save Kyo. We're going to have to try to figure out a way to break the curse. We got to worry about graduation and all this madness and exploring Akito's past. And the final's going to be crazy. My biggest concern with the final is just the episode count, because last week I said that people, like, at the beginning of the show had said that it's probably going to be 3 seasons, with season 3 probably being like 13 episodes. Now that we're here, a lot of people have said at this point, season 3 kind of has to be 25 episodes to keep the pacing up. But because everybody's saying that, now I'm concerned. If I hear season 3 is 13 episodes, I'm going to be incredibly concerned about the pacing. Because the pacing's been amazing so far. Like, nothing's felt too slow or too fast. Everything's felt perfect. So I'm a little concerned about the episode count, but I'm more excited than I am concerned. And I'm stalling because I don't want to stop talking about Fruits Basket. But alas, here we are at the end of season 2. It's been a trip. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot and share if you care. And of course, as always, I have to give a big, big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at these beautiful names. And hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people, there are 2 ways to do so. The first is by hitting that Patreon link in the description. And the second, for just a wee bit more, is by hitting that join button next to the sub button to get yourself a badge next to your name in the comments and premiere chats, as well as emotes that you can spam in the comments and premiere chats. Anybody in the premiere chats, if you have them emotes, go ahead and spam them right now. But yeah, they get you some cool emotes, cool badge next to your name, your name listed at the end of these videos. If you're even considering it, I super, super appreciate it. It's genuinely the biggest way you can help out the channel. It is very much appreciated. But with that said, everybody, that is a wrap on season 2. I will see you in season 3. I'm gonna make a prediction. I'm gonna say spring 2021. I'm gonna say spring 2021 because all the other seasons have come out in spring. So I feel like sometime in April we'll see season 3. So I'll see you then. I do have a special FruBa video coming out probably sometime next week, if not the week after. So get hyped for that. But until next time, you stay classy, AniTube, and wash your dang hands.